I happen to partner with wilderness and I happen to partner with adventure because it kind of runs in my veins and it's great. People are slightly out of their norm anyway. And when people are slightly out of their norm, it's like a chink in the armor where there's a crack in the dam that can kind of weave through and get to what's important, get to what's real.
All right. Welcome back to Ignite the King. We are going to do a take two on this episode. We shortchanged Tom here couple weeks ago, and we are putting a new episode out to recapture the magic of our really beautiful conversation. It's a shame that we lost some of the audio. So here we are again. Welcome, brother. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you again, too.
You're out in the outdoors of Florida. You are back in Oregon.
I am now in Ashland, Oregon right now.
All right.
True.
Back on home turf.
Soon to be just outside of Leavenworth at high camp at Alpine Lakes High Camp for the winter.
Nice. And they're having some major snow up there, you said, yeah?
Major. There's been some there's been roads washed out and kind of some big community events and challenges, and people have lost some stuff, and it's been big, but the community has really been coming together well around it.
Well, community is absolutely important in every respect, right? So
Yeah.
glad they got people like you on their side. So good work that you're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
Well, let's get into it. I know we talked about so much on our last episode. So like I said, we're gonna do our best to recapture the magic. And a lot of the focus that we talked about was raising our sons and daughters and rites of passage and the work that you've been doing with Inner Guide expeditions for the last 15 years. And as you just told me, 30 years of working with youth and all that you've seen with how children and becoming adults, how boys becoming men, how girls becoming women, and the challenges they face, us as parents, different generations, right?
Mhm.
How we did it when we were growing up, and now the kids, especially with technology, of course, what kids are facing nowadays, and really how to address it. And some of the biggest challenges you see, some of the biggest insights that you've had in working with this population. And I know you and I are in the process of running our first together collaborative event in the next fall of a father son rite of passage event, which I'm super excited about. We'll talk about that. And then we'll definitely talk about some of the offerings you have coming up this summer. You do national, international, small, large, I mean, all kinds of events. So I want to get into all that. But I'm going to
Yeah.
start you out with a question. That's all right, just to
Great.
kind of put you right on the spot. Yeah. In all your years of working with youth and in that transitionary time, what would you say, and this will just kind of be our doorway open into conversation, the biggest challenge or the most common roadblock you find with this age of child to adult, that or the biggest question that they're facing in their life? What would you say that is? And give you a lot of
Well,
room to go on this one.
totally. We could look at it from an in it, and we can go like the 20,000 foot version. And I'm going to start out big because youth to me are, instead in reverse, adults are really just youth with more developed coping mechanisms.
Mm.
We are all working on the same thing. And one of the biggest things, at least in the Western culture, is, am I okay? Am I okay? And there's this overarching feeling that we get that we're not enough. And we've gotten it from all the message from all over. We get it from advertising, we get it from our peers, we get it from parents, we get it from all over the place. Even though parents are like loving and all the things, like we're still wanting our children to grow and be different. And so we, as parents, we're like being one step ahead, come this way, and it's not being right where we are. So the inundation of social media, and there's plenty of people out there talking about the challenge of screen time and social media. So I don't really want to spend a ton of time there, except to note that it really does take us out of being present. And
Raising my
right
hand.
now, yeah, like right now, people, like we all walk around feeling alone at some point in the day and some point in our weeks. Like even if we're in totally loving, surrounded by friends and family and a partner and kids who are like present, like we still feel alone. But that's not even most people. Like we have the youth who they went through this COVID thing, and again, like there's lots of people talking about COVID and we don't need to concentrate there, but they have gone through this experience through really important, formidable social development time, and they missed it. they were told to stay apart and social distance and everything. And there's all sorts of ways to talk about that. And again, I don't want to get into there, but
How many rabbit holes we want to go down?
yeah, but what happened there, like the impact was, there's this crew of kids that's just kind of moving through that forgot how to learn, or they forgot how to connect. And when we walk around and we're not really connecting and we didn't really learn that, and we're taught to fear one another, then we don't bring each other close.
Yeah.
And so the screen piece, when any of us step away from screens for 72 hours, there
That's
is
a magic
some
number, right?
monumental shifts that happen in our brain, in our body, in our everything, in our presence. And with Inner Guide, I noticed in the expeditions that we run, it takes about 3 days before people like really settle into the presence of their experience.
Yeah, well, I
When
mean,
we're
there's
like,
literally like a
okay,
withdrawal, right? I mean, when we get off technology, I mean, you see it with very young kids. I've seen really hard to watch videos of parents that take away iPads from young kids, and it's literally like a drug addiction that they're coming off of. It literally in the brain is, right? So that's like on the extreme end. But yeah, there
yeah,
is like a detox, a digital detox period. And that's
yeah,
becoming more common, I know, amongst adults, right? Is like digital detox and social media detoxes. And these are
yeah,
things we never had to face 10, 15 years ago.
it's real. Yeah,
Yeah.
because we had face, not FaceTime.
Right. Right.
So the challenge is in connection, and that connection starts with self. And when we are disconnected from ourselves, like we talked about boredom previously, and my definition of boredom is the word that we use to describe the feeling we get when we're not busy enough to avoid the feelings we don't have.
Mm,
And so I feel uncomfortable. I watch myself do it. Like I'm
yeah.
part of the problem. Like I have been. Like I have my own like screen stuff. I'm not some saint, but I noticed my phone in my hand, and I'm like, what am I
Yeah.
doing? Like why did like
Almost
and
automatic.
yeah, it's automatic. Like what I try to ask myself when I'm doing really well, I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I put the phone back in my pocket and I try to think, what was I just feeling? What was I just thinking of the moment before I pulled my phone out of my pocket?
Yeah.
And that's the place to dig. That's the place to pay attention to. And when we haven't, like when youth and when we haven't you exercise those muscles, they atrophy.
Yeah.
When self inquiry and personal introspection are not part of our daily routine, and something uncomfortable comes up, it's way easier to blame somebody else. It's way easier to blame something outside of ourselves rather than take full ownership over me and my own experience and my perceptions and my beliefs that create it. That's pretty high level work. And
Yeah.
so our disconnect from ourselves and then our disconnect from our community is to me the core of the challenges that youth face. And really, aren't we all just youth in our
Yeah.
own way? But it's all the same. It's
Yep.
the same thing for most of the people my friends and everything. I see it all over the place.
Well, there's about, as you're talking, there's 10 things running through my mind that I want us to like branch off of. So I'm going to see if I
Great.
can, which is a good first question to get us into this because it's so important. You know, my mentor, Donnie Epstein, says we're information overload, we're in wisdom deprivation. And I find that to be true more and more. And he said that years ago. And talk about connection. And we are
Yeah,
connected more than ever on these devices, right?
love that.
So
Ella.
hey, we're in real life here. We got a dog. It's all good. We are
Yeah,
more connected, but we're more disconnected. I think of
yeah,
like living in New York City. You live in a city of 10 million people, and people are
yeah.
they're like in silos, literally, right? These buildings, and they're cut off from one another, and we don't have this like interaction anymore, and especially amplified by what you said around COVID and realizing this sort of Gen Z generation that really missed out on that and
Mhm.
I'm going to use the word traumatized by all of that. And
Yeah, it
just
definitely
because
is that.
death was a consequence, a potential consequence of not following the rules and
Yeah,
how scared, I mean, us as parents, I would say we were scared, not of the virus per se, but of the amount of lockdown and clamp down and control and dictating how we were supposed to live our life, there was a lot of fear for a lot of people of what's going to happen next. Is like Gestapo going to be banging on the door with syringes? What level are we going to? So
So
I know, and maybe we weren't expressing that externally, but feeling that obviously our children are in training to our nervous system. So they're feeling that, right? And that fear, I mean, it just collectively, the fear that was running. So obviously in these last number of years, it's been really amplified. But I think in general, whether that was there or not, this feeling of aloneness, I work with men as men on this that are listening, or people that are listening to this podcast know, and that feeling like not enoughness, not being loved, feeling alone, feeling isolated. I mean, this is super common theme. And that's why we
yeah,
create events for men to get intimate, to get deep, to drop in together. And you're translating it into the world of youth, which I really want to focus on because, like you said, they just don't have the same coping mechanisms that us as adults have. And I can imagine
for
the,
better and worse.
yeah, for better and worse, right? Well, I notice with kids, sometimes they could just feel the feelings and move through it, but and then they're
Yeah,
on the other side. They're not, we don't have such a developed frontal lobe where we can sit there. Why did this happen to me? What does this mean? And all this stuff, right? It's one of the
yeah,
blessing and curses of the higher brain. But for children, it's like they're big feelings and they don't know a lot of times how to deal with it, especially if they're in home environments or friend groups where that isn't supported or given the tools or the proper resources to know how to deal with it. So yeah, I'm just curious, and I think to peer into some of the work you're doing, I think it'd be really awesome to hear. Okay, so you know, a group comes on to one of these expeditions, these adventures, and okay,
mhm,
now it's 3 days in, and the phones have been gone, and there's like this like moment, there's this drop in, and it's like these, as I would say in our work, like the masks come off, right? So
yeah,
maybe give us a peer into that time of what starts to emerge, because I'm getting like full body chills just even get okay. Let's get to
yeah,
that part because I think that's going to be so
yeah.
valuable for people listening right now. Like what, because I think parents often have that challenge of like, how do I connect with my kids? But they can't really relate, but they can. You know what I'm trying to say? So, kind of what
I do.
starts to happen in that time after that, like 72 hours?
Well, I'll get to that question, but how do we get there? Like, what happens in those 72 hours to set it up so
Please.
that
Yeah.
what is available? And it's really about it's creating the safest possible place that I can and holding a container. Like, you as a facilitator know, like, you need to set the tone and you set agreements, but then you dip your toe into the shallow end of the pool, and then slowly you get in a little deeper and a little deeper and a little deeper, and there's a it happens by choice, and it's the only way. So my goal is to create the safest place that I possibly can so that they can start to use that muscle that again has been atrophied and remember, oh, wait a minute, that's wait, who am I, right? Who am I again? What is important to me? What is a hope that I have? What is a fear that I have around this trip? And speaking that into circle, and finding that in being witness. The four guidelines of circle of speak from the heart, listen from the heart, get to the heart of the matter, and be spontaneous, meaning you don't think about what you're going to say the whole time that it's going around the circle. When the stone or rock or feather, whatever comes to you, okay, what is my truth? And speak from that place.
You say those
You
four things again, the four rules, because I want to write them down actually, but it's so good.
Sure, sure. Speak from the heart. Speak what's true. Speak what's true, not what you think you are supposed to say, but speak what's true to you. Listen from the heart. Listen with compassion. Listen with presence. Listen with, in a way that most people don't anymore, but listen with, just be there. Get to the heart of the matter. And if you're going to talk about the thing, talk about the thing, not your neighbor's cat who did this thing. And then, by the way, get to the heart of the matter, get down to it. And then, of course, to be spontaneous.
Love it.
So as we lay down these pieces, and like on inner guide trips, I have two guidelines. I'm not much of a rules person per se, but like I have two guidelines. And one is respect. And it covers a whole lot of things, from being impeccable with our word and treating each other with kindness to treating our things with kindness, and like all the different things. It's like this, it's one word that can en- encapsulate a lot. And the other is don't do stupid stuff. and
Those are good rules
sometimes
for life, Tom.
I know, I know. Sometimes when we personally are doing stupid stuff, we don't actually know. We're not actually tracking it, but when we see other people do stupid stuff, we know it. And so there's an agreement that if you're doing stupid stuff, are you willing to be called out? Yes, great. So, so there, and
I don't
then
want to
there's
ask some examples of stupid stuff because usually when we have rules, it's because we've seen it and we need a rule for it. So.
oh god, I've seen a lot over the piece of time that I've been able to work. Stupid stuff. Often it has to do with people acting like an ambulance is 5 minutes away and they're doing parkour or something like that out in the wilderness where we are way more than an hour from definitive care, if not days. So some of it has to do with that. And then some of it has to do with like how we speak to each other and
Yeah.
bringing people back to that respect. And so
I
there's
find
a
a
whole
lot
lot
of
of
that in a different way comes up with men where when we feel uncomfortable, when men feel uncomfortable, then they'll want to make a joke, right? Or want to cut the tension, or they feel uncomfortable internally. So, and it's like a way for them to feel safer in a way, but it's an immature or a unproductive way of
yeah,
trying to fit in or feel not alone, maybe.
yeah,
So,
exactly.
yeah.
So in that 72 hours, in those first days, what it's really doing is helping them be in a safe place. And when people start emoting, there's something that happens in a mirrored neuron way where somebody shares something vulnerable and it like ignites this safety. Oh, wait, that part of me is safe. That can be okay. That part of me, like, whoa. And then we all kind of walk a little deeper into the pool.
Let's pause there
By
for a second because you used a word that I love or a phrase, mirror neurons, and we just kind of spit those things out and just for our audience, and I'll have you give your interpretation of it. But I just did a teaching on this actually in our Ignite group because we're the archetype of the magician, which really understands quantum mechanics and all of that, where a mirror
yep,
neuron is a neuron that we have in our brain that when we witness something that we recognize in ourselves, it lights up. So it's almost like this mirror, a reflection of what we
yes,
see in someone else, we see in ourselves. In our work in Ignite, we say your work is my work, right? When you witness a man going through something that you have had a similar experience with, it's like him doing that work heals us without us having to go through it. So I can imagine in your experience with youth, where it's like when they see someone share something vulnerable and wow, it's safe to share that. I'm not going to get hurt or, left by the tribe kind of feeling. I
totally.
imagine that's very empowering for a child.
Yep, yep. Well, it's empowering for all of us. And as they are learning to who they are, like who am I is one of the biggest questions of that age. And for those of us who are paying attention, that question kind of never stops. But who am I? Who am I in like me in relation to the world? What's my value? What do I bring? What do I want to do? Why am I here? All of these different things that every time, again, I want to repeat it too much, but like every time we pick up a phone, it takes us away from being present with that. And being out in the wilderness for that time, when we create a really safe place for people to be and they start feeling seen for who they are instead of who they think they are supposed to be in order to receive love, a job, acceptance, friends, like whatever it is, when they really feel seen for who they actually are, there's a confidence that unlocks that can follow them for life. And that's really what I'm up to in the whole of it. And I happen to partner with wilderness and I happen to partner with adventure because it kind of runs in my veins and it's great. People are slightly out of their norm anyway. And when people are slightly out of their norm, it's like a chink in the armor where there's a crack in the dam that can kind of weave through and get to what's important, get to what's real.
Yeah. Can you talk specifically about the wilderness and the natural
Mhm.
world and your take on why that's so important, how that impacts the depth that people can go and why you chose that as the ground that you work with?
I think that a lot of ways can work and it depends on the people. For me, there's a simplicity that the wilderness offers. There's also an accountability. The ocean, the mountains, they don't care if you're comfortable. They don't care if you're warm or fed or alive or what. There's an accountability that you have to know how to do and take care of yourself. You have to learn how to cook, like, out there. Like, when we bring kids out, we put them in cook groups. So a cook group is 3 or 4 people, and that 3 or 4 person group has their own pot and stove and food and water filter and everything they need to be a self-sustaining group. And within that, they learn all of those skills, and then they learn accountability within the group around, okay, who's doing what, when, and cleaning, and like all the different things that group needs to function, that for many of these kids, their parents have been doing.
Right.
And so it creates like they need to develop that muscle of being able to take care of themselves and being accountable to a group. And so, as wilderness holds us accountable, it also provides this incredible wonder when we can build the skills that are needed in order to thrive out in the wilderness. That's another piece that unlocks this incredible potential and the confidence. Like, oh, if I can do this, I can do. Wow, what else can I do? Like,
Yeah.
a lot. Like, for years I haven't done it just a couple of years, but like I would bring middle schoolers out, and in the winter, in the middle of winter, and we would build snow caves and sleep in them. And they'd build their own snow cave and they'd sleep in their own snow cave. And like, people were nervous about it getting to it, but then like they would do it, and like they stand taller. Like, their shoulders are further back, their head is further up. They're like, wow, I can do that. I'm not sure if I'm going to do it again, but wow, I did that. I survived. I was warm, or maybe I was cold, and whoa, I would totally dig a snow cave a totally different way next time. I really learned from that, like, all things like wilderness holds us accountable, and it shows us what we're capable of.
Yeah.
And
In a small, oh, go ahead.
when we bring in intentional inquiry into the process of it, it becomes the transformational potential of it becomes profound.
Yeah. I found in a different way when you get someone out of their ordinary life and you sort of get this place where things become more malleable. Like you said, accountability in nature, to use your words, you get to the heart of the matter quicker. It's like the fluff is gone, the bullshit's gone. It's let's just
Yeah.
be real. Like, I could die out here, so I'm just going to say what I need to say. That kind of just raw life force kind of energy going on. But I
Yeah.
love the piece around, if I could do this, I wouldn't necessarily want to do it again, but if I could do this, then I can handle a lot of the other things in my life. In a small way, we do that at some of the immersions I lead where we do ice baths or cold plunges, right? And I
Yeah.
have found that so much of the fear or resistance is just the story men create around it. And then invariably, every time they do it, they have to overcome that inertia barrier. And then when they do it, they're like, well, that wasn't really so bad.
Totally.
But what kind of buildup, what kind of resistance do we create in our own head about these things? And then when we finally do it, it's, well, if I can do that, I mean, if I could sit in ice for 3 minutes, then I could probably do a lot of other hard stuff. And man,
Right?
just I can only imagine if I'm like taking myself back to that younger age. I'm like, man, if I would have learned that or had those kind of experiences, I mean, I had a pretty good youth, but nothing like that where I mean, I was in a lot of sports and group dynamics and camps and different aspects in that way, but and challenged, I guess, but nothing like what you're talking about, where really given the forum and the place to ask those deeper questions at that age. And man, could I, and I'm sure a whole generation that I grew up with could have used that. Probably been a
Yeah.
lot nicer to each other.
We'd probably live in a different world if everybody was supported on that level.
Yeah. I mean, and that'll tie into the work I know that we're going to collaborate on and helping fathers and sons connect in this way. It's what I'm doing with the men that it's not even so much about their own growth, but about how they're raising their children, the next generation. I feel like we
Mhm.
are in that generation that's both parenting and reparenting themselves. I think we are in that first generation of that. Prior to us, there really wasn't that level of self growth or self development that was really being taken seriously at the level that it is. So,
Yeah.
and obviously you've been doing this for 30 years, so you've seen that evolution, I imagine. So let's continue on the journey here. So
Sure.
at 72 hours happens, the masks start to drop, we start to deepen
Mhm.
in the inquiry. And so,
Yep.
yeah, bring us more into that zone.
So in that 72 hours, there's some discomfort that happens. And in that discomfort, they grow. They reach a little outside of something that's a little uncomfortable. They start feeling like they're, as I said, more seen. And as they do that, they reach a little further. And like I see us like onions, if you will. And if you will, it's all these different layers. And every different layer, there is a we have to give permission in order for somebody to see us, or in order for us to feel seen in it. And so no, there's I have this whole idea around permission granted around like how deep can you allow yourself to be seen? If you are you willing to sit and look somebody in the eyes and not look away and be raw and just be seen, even without words and your story and everything, just like your plain being here. And so that's not something we do in the first couple of days, but I
Right. I'm
love
like, wow,
love,
Tommy hardcore.
love feeling
I love it.
how deep can you allow yourself to be seen?
Yeah.
And the level that we allow ourselves to be seen is the level that we are seen. And that's the level that we don't feel lonely. So it's our work to do. But, in that 72 hours, the safety is growing and the connections are melding together. And then people start to play. They
Mm.
play more. They come out of their shells. They're less trying to be who they think they're supposed to be. And they're kind of their goofy selves. We're all a little goofy inside. I don't trust people that aren't goofy in some level.
Right.
Um, no, I don't trust people that aren't goofy. And I don't trust people that think that they have everything figured out because it's like, no, no, no. Okay. But after that time period and it starts to grow, then we can actually work with what's there. And so that's the time period where we bring in some intentional journaling and some sitting on their own and like solo time and one-on-one conversations and coaching and mentoring that helps them to unpack what it is that they're seeing and experiencing. And it's enough time away from home and it's enough time away from their normal everyday life that they can get a more clear perspective on on it. And who are they at home and what is part of like where does that come from and like how does that serve you? And I have a whole process that I teach parents around how to connect with your teens through the teenage years.
Yeah, I know you
And
have a
how
beautiful acronym for that. Can you get into that a little bit? I think it'd be
yeah,
really
so
helpful to the adults that are listening. All adults,
sure.
but yeah.
Yeah. So I teach people to be a plumber, and in this way, it's not plumbing as in the water that goes through walls, but the more like plumbing the depths of connection in this experience. And so that's an acronym. So PLUMBER, and P is pause. As you want to connect, as you're trying to build a relationship, whatever it is, first pause. And the pauses, this is where our own personal work as adults, as parents, as mentors, as people in this world really come in. Like, pause one that you think you know what's going on. Pause that you pause the idea that what you needed at that age is what they need right now, because that's false. They need what they need, and you don't know unless you pause that. Pause everything else that's been going on with your day. Put your phone aside. Pause the stress that's been going on. It's not their stress. Come to them as cleanly as possible. And of course, we're always going to have something around that, like our upbringing, the culture that we were raised in, the spiritual or religious beliefs, like all of this. There's a lens that we look at life through that is intrinsically part of who we are. And the better we know that lens, the better we can imagine what it is without the lens. But if we haven't recognized, if we haven't owned that that's part of our story and part of the structure of our system, then we treat it as truth instead of just a belief. So pause. It's a lot of work.
Well, I
It's
was
like
gonna say pause could be a whole workshop in itself.
totally, maybe it will become one. There's a book coming out of this already, so
That
that's in process. So pause is the first and most important thing. If you can't pause, none of the rest of it matters. It's misplaced. So L is listen, and listen to what is being said. Listen to what's not being said. Listen to your own intuition. around what's going on, which is really different from your own thoughts or your own feelings. Do the work in the pause to know that you're listening to what is that. There's some subtle layers in there that are really important. And you're listening in order to understand where they are, not understand how you can tell them how to fix the problems that you think they have, but really understanding, just understand for the sake of understanding, not for fixing, not for solving, not for commanding, not for reprimanding. Just understand. We are all having this human experience that is just challenging sometimes.
Empathy.
Sometimes it's brilliant, sometimes it's challenging, like whatever. But to be with someone who is just there to understand, the level of trust that comes from that alone, like that listening from the heart, like part of the circle agreements, listen from the heart to understand. And M then is meet them right where they are, not a step ahead, not a step behind. And I like to use the metaphor of sitting on a park bench. It's not like sitting across from each other, it's sitting like right next to each other, and their life is at play out before in the field, and you get to meet them just right where they are. And B is bring inquiry. And that's part of the park bench. You sit on the park bench, the metaphorical park bench with them, and hey, I noticed this. How's that working for you? Like, how does that feel? Or if they're, as they're sharing about something, bring inquiry that deepens their own understanding, not that walks them into the answer that you think is best for them.
Right.
That, no,
Yeah.
but the bringing inquiry. If there's someone who is sitting with you, and you, Michael, and the people who are listening to this, everyone has sat with someone who brings out the answers and the wisdom that they have in them and us. And what happens is this, the trust level goes way up. I believe more in myself. If somebody believes in me enough to just not tell me the answer, but to help me find more of me that assembles it in such a way that I feel so capable, it brings my own, oh, I just solved that. I did. And whoa, that person helped me. I didn't feel demeaned. I didn't feel like put down because I didn't understand it yet. Like I was actually brought into a fuller understanding of myself. And what that does to a relationship is extraordinary.
Let's
So bringing inquiry, deepen their own understanding.
I want to pause on this one for a second.
Yeah.
Because I actually just resaw this same thing from this man. I've seen online, I've met in person. Michael Burnoff, he's a coach, he's a consultant. He does a lot with like neurolinguistic programming. And
Mhm.
he does this example where he has someone share about something really good their kid did. And he would say to them, do you say, hey, son, I'm proud of you? And oh, yeah, of course, I'm really proud of you. And you think that's innocuous. And he's, don't ever do that. Oh, that's why not? He's because now this kid's identity is dependent on your being proud of him. And it's something that could be taken away. And his perspective is you should say, you should be really proud of yourself because now you're empowering them to be proud of what they've done. And they're the ones that are empowered to decide that they can do something or not. And I'm hearing that in what you're saying. I'm curious your thoughts on
So
that because that was like a game changer. And it's become a little thing in our family where someone will share something like that happened. And we're like, you should be really proud of yourself. And it is a
yeah,
different energetic versus and I don't think there's anything wrong saying I'm proud of you, but at the same time, I see where we can kind of give up our our
yeah.
power to others, and now we're dependent on it. Are they going to take it away? Am I going to get it again? And versus I control that internally.
Yeah. And the way that flips it, you should be proud of yourself. It helps them to internalize it instead of externalizing their wins.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, that bringing inquiry is really, it's in service of them.
Cool.
That's all it is. It's in service. And that's what really brilliant coaches do. That's what really brilliant parents do. We show up and we help people empower from within. The best leaders, as it is said, you can tell by how many leaders they have created, not by how many followers they have gained.
Ooh. Oh yeah. I this is the way I teach men to speak to their women. It's like we often want to fix things, right? As men, and there's men out there, it's how they hear the problem. Well, this is the solution. It's really simple. And it's really not
Yeah.
about that. It's about helping them get to the answer themselves, which by the way, women already know the answer. They just want to process it and then do the thing that they already knew that they were going to do, but they want to feel safe with their partner, their most intimate person, to be able to
Mhm.
process and all that stuff. And I always love the video. Have you seen that? It's not about the nail video. The girl's got the nail in her head and and the guy's, oh, you should really just get the nail out. That's not about the nail. And I show that at many of my events where finally he breaks down. He's like, yeah, that's got to really hurt. She's like, yes, thank you. Anyway, this skit goes on, but it really is bring inquiry. We are way more in tune and have way more knowledge and I believe the nature part really probably helps to bring that out even more
Right.
and get attuned to that part. All right, let's finish up the mnemonic here. We got E and R, I believe.
Sure. So we're on bring inquiry, and then E is empower. And this is where it's one thing to bring inquiry and and come to an understanding, but then what are you going to do about it? Like, how does that affect how you are going to do blank? How does your change how you see the conflict, or see where you want to go with your life, or the conflict with me, like whatever it is? Empower them. What do you want to do about it? Maybe there's a big goal that they have and maybe they don't quite understand how to put it all together, but empowering them to make their own movement around it. It's like when they get the clarity and start to develop that confidence is really locked in when they take action. When they take action, and that could look physical, it could look energetic, it could look like momentum in a way, but they have to be the ones to step forward and do that. And I also love the metaphor of that babies learn to crawl because there's something just outside of their reach, that they could be sitting in wherever they're sitting in their little high chair or whatever, and they're wanting to, actually not a high chair because they're not going to crawl out of a high chair.
I hope not.
They're sitting on the floor and they're like, they want something just outside of their reach, and so that is the inspiration to develop the muscles that will allow them to crawl. They reach out with their hand, they move, they like, and then sooner or later they like, oh wait a minute, I can do this thing and I can move and I can get to, and they're like, oh, I got the thing. And so that empowering, it's so important not to take those learning experiences away. They can come to a brilliant idea, but if you come in and you deliver all of the solutions, then, oh, I realized that what I really want is a new bike. Let's go shallow here for a second, but don't buy them a bike. Like, the empowering is, okay, how are you going to do that? What do you want with that bike? What's that bike really going to give you? And help them to understand, and then create the inspiration to create the muscle to do for themselves, not enable them.
Right. And then it's a beautiful opportunity to do it alongside them, right? And to help
Exactly.
them create the outcome and not just hand them something, teach them to fish instead of giving them the fish, right?
Absolutely. Like, the comfort and growth rarely take up the same time and place.
Amen.
They just do. And parents with all the best intentions of helping their kids avoid pain, there's an interpretation somehow that to allow your kids to struggle is somehow unloving. And of course, if there's wounding happening, it's a totally different story. And that's the wisdom of parenting, of knowing when to step in and not. But
Right.
I see more parents saving their kids from learning experiences that are really going to help them become strong adults, that ultimately they wind up creating those experiences later in life through rites of passage that sometimes are not the healthiest
Oh yeah.
ways to go about it.
Very unhealthy. There's three things that are popping for me. I want to just pop them in here. I find often that in our culture nowadays, many parents want to be friends with their children and not be parents. They don't want to be
Hmm.
the disciplinarian. They don't want to hold boundaries. Like they want their kids to like them, which I can see in your scenario of saving them and just giving them the fish or whatever, that there's a lot of that goes on. They don't want to be unliked. They don't want to be uncool, maybe because their own wounds of feeling that way in their childhood. And then there's a Jordan Peterson quote that I love that he says, never interfere when your children are doing dangerous things carefully. Like
I love it.
and I might be misquoting it a little bit, but the idea is that we can't be this helicopter parent. Yes, our kids are going to do dangerous things. And if they're consciously doing them, not doing stupid things, as you said, but they're actually like, they're present with it, that you have to let them learn and even fall and get hurt sometimes, because
Yep.
that's how they learn. And the last piece, I'm currently reading Wild at Heart, John Elridge, if you know that book, really great. And he talks about how men have really missed out on the part of adventure, being a
Mhm.
man, of putting themselves in dangerous, challenging situations to grow. And everything is so sanitized, so to speak, these days, that kids don't really know how, and men for that matter, don't really know what they're made of. They haven't really tested their limits in that way. And obviously, there's safe and unsafe ways to do that. And I find the more safety we make with it, the more unsafe ways through vices and drugs and things like that that kids will try, because we all yearn to feel excitement and adventure. And I imagine,
Mhm.
I mean, your company is literally called Inner Guide Expeditions, right? Which is about adventure. So
Yep.
it's literally baking in that part where it's like, hey, we're an hour from any other human. There is real danger here, which
Mhm.
requires us to be more present, more conscious, and all of that. So those are a few things that were popping as you were talking in the last
Yeah.
moment.
Have you heard of the concept around lighthouse parenting?
Go ahead. No.
So I it's essentially so it's the antithesis to helicopter parenting, where you're like covering everything and making sure that nobody like is going to get hurt over anything whatsoever. And there's a there's a the person that started Knowles National Outdoor Leadership School, as it was started like way back in early 80s, there was a parent that really wanted their son to go, and they wrote and they're like, I really want my son to go, but can you absolutely guarantee the safety of my son? And he wrote back this brilliant letter, and I love it, and it's a little sharp and also just like real, which is so actually wilderness, and paraphrase of course, wilderness has actually some real dangers. There's rivers, there's rockfall, there's avalanches, there's lakes, there's the ocean is gnarly. And so I can what I can guarantee like that there actually is some real danger. Well, what I can also guarantee is that if you put your safety, the safety of your son in front of everything else, I can guarantee the death of their soul. And lighthouse parenting is really about being the beacon, is about being like holding the place. A lighthouse doesn't move like helicopter moves. Like lighthouse is just, I'm here. Don't hit these rocks.
Right.
Don't do that. I love you. You tell me what you need from me. And that's not hands off. It's being there. And of course, the being a present, aware, and loving parent, there's different appropriate ways to apply these at different ages of their development and stages of their development.
Yeah.
A 3-year-old needs something very different than a 13-year-old.
Totally.
So
So let's start
empower.
honing it in and get to the R here.
Yeah. R is repeat. If you get to the end, just go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
And also, if you ever forget where you are at any moment, just go back to P, pause, whatever. I'm in my head, like, oh, got it. What's really important here? Oh, I'm listening. I'm listening. And this, of course, as you can imagine, and anybody else who's listening can imagine, this doesn't just work with kids. Try this with your partners. Pause, listen, understand, meet, bring inquiry, empower, and repeat.
Love it. So one more question I want to ask, so we can really bring the fullness of your work. And then I know you have some adventures and expeditions happening this summer I want you to share about. So let's say a youth goes through this expedition. I know they range from a few days to a few weeks, right? Some of these expeditions that you do. And I can imagine on the other side of that, huge breakthroughs, awareness of self, awareness of others, empowered to use your word. And I know you do a lot of work with children after they go on this particular experience because I know in my work, men need mentoring beyond peak experience, right? So just
Yeah.
curious, like some of that integration work, because it's one thing to have a weekend or a week or even three out in the wilderness and nature, but then it's okay. How does that, how have you seen it integrate into a kid's life? And the lasting impact of that and how you help support that and maybe some of the things parents can kind of tune into in that level.
Yeah. Well, I support you through ongoing mentoring. Those who aren't local to where I live, which are a lot of the kids that we work with, I'll work with them over Zoom or FaceTime and stay connected. We our repeat clients are a lot. There's quite a few people that come back the next year because they come back, they're like, whoa, this was huge. And so they go home and they are seen differently and they show up differently. And then the next year, I can't wait to get you back there. And then we start not at the same place, but we start a few steps farther forward. And so I love the process of getting to support and witness these youth as they're going through their years. And some of my very best friends on the planet started in my program when they were in the summer before sixth grade. And now they're 25 years old. And they're some of my best friends on the planet. They went through all of my programs and then they just have become friends. And as I'm going back to that 72 hours, that first 72 hours, I'm also leading with my own level of vulnerability. So I'm not expecting like I imagine typical therapists tell me about your feelings and not telling mine. I'm pretty real and raw with most of my life that is appropriate to share with them.
Right.
And so that it opens that up. So as we go through the years, after they've gone through one program and they might come to another one, a longer one in a different part of the world or a different part of that, sometimes we do then customs with their families and help the whole family to weave in closer to one another.
I can imagine some of the testimonials you've received and some of the messages from parents about their children have just been like real medicine for you over the years.
It's if this were just about adventure, I would have spun out of this a really long time ago. It's truly such a gift to get to do this, to get to spend the few short breaths that I get in this life in this way and feel so purposeful. And yeah, there's a lot of people who have written testimonials. Some of them are on the website. And then just like walking through town and seeing somebody that I didn't even know that there was that much of an impact. Maybe they were on like a shorter program or like a program that I worked for a while ago, but and people coming, you really made a difference in my life. And like I was introduced to, I saw a young man who was with his fiance and this is Tom. And she's, oh, thank you. And I, like, it's really, I'm humbled and so stoked and so glad that I get to leave that wake behind.
Well, brother, you have a beautiful soul and a beautiful heart, and it really comes through even on a in a screen. And you're definitely living a mission-driven life and helping and hearing just that story is a beautiful encapsulation of the impact that you're having. And my hope, not only just with this episode, but us collaborating and just your work in general, that it exponentially grows because working with the next generation is how we change the next generation. Just to keep it simple.
Got to water those seeds, tend them well.
Yeah, yeah, tend them
Yeah.
well. So tell us about what you got coming up because we're gonna wrap it up here in a minute. So you have some adventures happening this summer, and we're also collaborating on an event in October for fathers and sons. And I'll as we
Beautiful.
dial in the details of that, we'll be sharing that more. But yeah, what do you got going on?
Yeah. Well, I'm really looking forward to the one in October with you and the process of all of it
Yeah, man.
this summer. So there's a few different ways that we can play. One, so Our summer adventures are open enrollment, and we got things for middle schoolers and high schoolers. There is a 7-day backpacking in Northern California in the Trinity Alps for middle school. It's open gendered. And that there's for all of our programs, they don't need to know anything. They don't need to know how to pack a backpack. They hardly even need to know how to tie their shoes, although it's helpful. But we teach them everything from the ground up and take everybody from ground zero to wherever. So that's for kids going into sixth, seventh, or eighth grade. There's a few different high school trips. One of them is into the North Cascades of Washington, which borders Canada, where it's backpacking and canoeing. And during that, there's a 48-hour solo. It's really an extraordinary wilderness. Like we do this hike out into the wilderness, and then we hike to the end of this 25-mile lake, and we're delivered boats and a restock, and then we spend the last few days paddling down, and it's pretty brilliant. There is a girls only trip that I'm not on. I have an extraordinary staff who support this work, but there's some women who are amazing who are running that. That goes up onto a little island called Nootka Island. It's off the west coast of Vancouver Island in British Columbia. And they take a float plane out onto this remote island. They hike the length of it. There's a 48-hour solo during it. They get another float plane to a fly-in or boat-in only hot springs, spend a couple nights. They take a boat back to Tofino and make their way back home. And then that's 15 days. And then there is a 23-day trip that I will be on with another one of my staff. We spend the first week in Iceland doing a trek there that is just, yeah, the contrast that Iceland is in color and weather and the green and the volcanic, and it's really beautiful. And then we get on a flight and we fly to Geneva and go to Chamonix, France at the base of Mont Blanc, and we hike the 105-mile Tour de Mont Blanc,
Ooh,
starting in Chamonix, going through northern Italy, western Switzerland, and back to Chamonix where we started.
I want to go.
And yeah, it's again like wilderness and adventure I partner with. So I like to offer trips that I'm really excited about and inspired by, and the beauty that is available on all of those trips is it's something that sets me back. Like I've done the Tour de Mont Blanc now 3 times with clients, and it's wow, just humbled by the glaciers and the rock and the everything. And it's a hut to hut trip, meaning that we hike during the day with something like day packs, and we get to a high mountain hostel. They serve us dinner, give us some place to sleep, they feed us breakfast and send us away with a packed lunch, and we do that on repeat with a couple of rest days in there. It's really it's Europeans know how to do that pretty
I
well.
was going to say, if you're
And
in France, you're going to eat well. So I love it.
so there's that. And then I do a lot of custom work. I do one-on-one rites of passage for youth. And there's 25-year-olds that I've been working with for years. And we do 1 or 2 trips a year. And there's regular coaching involved through Zoom or FaceTime.
Yeah.
And then there's custom family expeditions, and custom family expeditions are actually one of my favorite things. They're so dynamic and so fun. And what happens is I take everybody who's going on the trip and I interview them and talk about their hopes and their fears and what are the don't talk about subjects, which of course the talk about subjects just carefully. And then also,
I'll lead with that subject. How about that? Maybe on
yeah,
day
exactly.
4.
Like I'm gonna see if that. But anyway, I've got a little coyote in me. Anyway, and
I
then
love it.
also if they could order up one single conversation that they personally feel like could make the biggest difference in their family dynamic, what would that conversation be? And I take all of those interviews, and sometimes I interview people outside of the family who aren't going, who have been given permission to speak freely. But I take it all and I weave it into a customized curriculum, and I overlay it onto an adventure someplace in the world that and an adventure that meets their interests, their abilities, their ages, their budget, the season, like all of it. And then a package like that also comes with coaching individually and some different dynamic things to really support the family, not only to make that transformational, but to really follow it through.
Wow. I'm imagining between all those things, brother, that your schedule is full. full but flexible, as you said to me before
I
we started.
I am wonderfully busy, and get to, again, I feel so blessed.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to reach out to you offline. I'm doing my first event in Sedona. That's like my first destination immersion for the men in Ignite. And I've been starting to plan that. And it's, yeah, definitely,
Mm.
yeah, lots coming up with ideas and being
Yeah,
out of my comfort zone. I'm in Austin and I do all my events here, and there's a certain safety in being here. And I got all my stuff and I bring a truck full of things. And I'm like, now, oh, I'm not going to be home. I'm going to be on this adventure too. So I'll
yeah,
definitely reach out to you on that. So I just want to take a moment to really thank you for again for the work that you're doing, the impact that you're having. There's a reason that we're working now. I really honor the mission that you're on. Having a 10.5-year-old son myself, like,
yeah,
which is part of why I'm wanting to collaborate with you, is just being right on
yeah,
that precipice of this pre-man era, this rite of passage coming in. And although I'm not expecting to be perfect, I want to be very intentional about how I'm doing it, and having your guidance,
beautiful.
having your wisdom, even on this
Yeah,
episode here, has been really impactful. So I just want to really
yeah.
thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate this walk, and that I appreciate this time with you, and that we are both on the edge of our unfolding if we're really paying attention. And I'm happy to be making these steps with you.
Yeah. And with the partners we have, we are always on the edge of our unfolding. Isn't that true?
Tell me about it. Yeah.
Shout out to our partners for keeping us
Giddy
on
up.
the adventure. Again, much love. What's the website? Is it innerguideexpeditions.com? I want to make sure I
It
get that
is
right. It's
www.innerguideexpeditions.com.
cool. And
And
that'll
you
be in
can,
the show notes, and we'll have links to your calendar and all the ways to work with you, and all the adventures you got coming up. Sounds awesome. So
yeah,
go ahead and share this episode around, get it to those who need it. Again, even though we're talking about youth, these plumber, all the things we talk about really translate to all relationships in your life, especially your intimate relationships. So apply it, empower yourself, power others, and repeat. And with that, we are complete. And have
yeah.
a great rest of the day,
Thank
man.
you. You too.